Hey, welcome back to For Those Interested. This is episode 3. I want to consider this idea or the conversation regarding Christians, the Bible, and the use of medicine related to depression and anxiety. I think that there's oftentimes a stigma related to things like depression and anxiety, that Christians wrestle to know how they need to address it and deal with it. There are some, and I'm familiar with this camp, kind of grew up among people that thought this way at times. There's some that think that when it comes to things like depression and anxiety, that the only solution to these things is for you just to read your Bible more and pray. And so the medicine, per se, to fix these types of issues is spiritual disciplines. And I certainly want to encourage everyone, if they have neglected the spiritual disciplines of prayer, of fasting, and reading their Bible, and fellowship and gathering people, you certainly need to take a survey of those, an audit of how you're doing. But you don't need to assume that anytime I'm wrestling with one of these things, it's because of a deficiency in one of these areas. During the pandemic, I wrestled with anxiety quite a bit, and yet I was also having some of the sweetest times with the Lord in prayer and in the Word. And so I found that God in His kindness provides a common grace in the form of medicine and in counseling, and that we don't need to be afraid of availing ourselves to those things. We don't need to feel shame. We don't need to battle in isolation. I think what our enemy would love for us to do is to feel shame and not to actually get help whenever we need it. And so the Lord used anti-anxiety medicine for me during the pandemic, and while I was able to get off of it, I don't feel as though it's something that I might not ever need in the future, or a tool that I might not use, and I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for God providing that for me. And so just as you're wrestling with these things, you may think, well, does the Bible say anything about these things? Or does the Bible just say, hey, when you have an issue, you just have to deal with it spiritually? I think that when the Apostle Paul writes to Timothy regarding Timothy's stomach issues, Paul is certainly praying, certainly wanting him to stir up the gift that's been given to him by the laying on of hands of preaching and reading the Word and prayer. But at the same time, the Apostle Paul also says, hey, man, look, when your stomach's bothering you, have a glass of wine, for your stomach. So he's advocating a medicinal use of a substance for the benefit of his physical body, that he might be a better steward and minister of the grace of God. I think that's completely in line and parallels the way that we could think about the use of medicines to treat anxiety and depression under the supervision of a professional, and recognizing that I'm not putting my hope in these things. Instead, I am receiving them with thanksgiving, saying, God, thank you for providing these types of tools and types of medicines, and I pray that you would use it in my heart, in my life, to help me get through these times of anxiety and these times of depression. The reality is those medicines don't always work. They should never be a substitute for a vibrant spiritual life, but we shouldn't expect that a vibrant spiritual life would always mean that we won't have times where we need to deal with these things through counseling and medicine. That's totally appropriate. I think the Bible teaches that that's acceptable. I think that Paul's example to Timothy is a helpful way for us to think about these things, where we approach things like depression and anxiety with a both-and attitude, not just an either-or, where it's you just need more spirituality or you need medicine. It's a both-and. It's a Lord, use your Word, use your prayer, use your people to help me, but Lord, also at the same time, use these gifts of good medicine and exercise and good foods to nourish my body, that I would be better equipped to serve you and your kingdom. So in summary, I think that what I would say, if you're a Christian, you're wrestling with these things, find some people that you can share your heart with, find some people that will listen to you, find some people that will encourage you. Don't be fearful or feel shame. Those that would try to shame you into silence and into darkness as a result of those struggles are not doing so in love. They really need to be rebuked. And I want to encourage you to find a local body of believers that will receive you and walk alongside you and help you, and find medical professionals that have a good balance of understanding how to treat these things and receive those types of benefits by faith and thanking God and hopefully he will use those. And so if you find yourself in need, don't be afraid to get help. Don't feel like it's because you failed as a Christian. That is not true. Even happy Christians, truly happy Christians, those blessed Christians of Psalm 1, will go through difficult times. And when they do, that doesn't mean that they have failed as a Christian. It means that God is refining them in ways that they do not know yet, and that he intends their good in those moments of trial. And yet, even still, he does not intend for them to stay in those forever, even as we see Paul instructing Timothy regarding his stomach. And so I hope that encourages you, and if you benefit from these, I encourage you to subscribe to the other social media platforms where they are available, and then also share them with others. So this is for those interested, and this is episode 3. My name is Casey Huff, and I hope that it's been a blessing and a benefit to you, and I hope to see you around next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.